I always wanted to be a teacher when I started school.
We're here for the students and we want what's best for the student.
And I love watching people learn.
Your teacher, student, academics, curriculum, whatever, that center post, the one that keeps this education together.
What if implementing Indian education for all began not with having all the answers, but with a commitment to learning and doing better? In this episode of Last Best Learning, we're cutting through the fear, the guilt, and where do I even begin by talking with an incredible guest, Connie Michael from Crow Agency Elementary School here in Montana. She has an incredible tenure of putting IEFA into practice every day with authenticity, humility, and impact. Hi, and welcome to the Last Best Learning podcast, a podcast designed for Montana's educators, where our mission is to deliver digestible, relevant, professional learning, honoring your capacity in an increasingly busy world. If there's a topic or speaker you'd like to hear from, we would love to hear from you. Montana educators empower minds, elevate futures, and inspire self-discovery, and we walk beside them. We are your hosts, Claire Mikeson, Katrina Ingledrum, and Michelle McCarthy, OPI's ELA, Math, and Science coordinators. Let's dive in. Connie, thank you so much for joining us and being willing to talk about IEFA and what you do at your school. I'm wondering if for our listeners who aren't familiar with your work and what you do yet, if you can share a little bit about yourself and your experience.
So I'm Connie Michael, and this is my 35th year of teaching. I taught for 25 years in Washington State, primarily K-2. I was a bilingual education teacher in primarily Spanish, and I moved to Montana 10 years ago and teach at Crow Agency Public School on the Crow Reservation, and I've taught 5th grade since I got there.
It sounds like you have a nice tenure that you can draw on experience. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to call you in. One of the things that we hear a lot is this level of discomfort. I know in math in particular, because the resources are so limited, I hear a lot of teachers say, I don't know where to start. And we kind of wanted to ask you right off the bat, what you think makes IEFA meaningful and not just that required checkbox that teachers are hitting to be compliant. What does that look like in practice, and why does it matter for students?
Well, for Montana, I think it matters a lot because Montana has such a large Indigenous community, and it's deep into our schools, and our students need to feel like they're important and not just an afterthought in a lesson. And the way I approach my teaching in a place-based learning kind of atmosphere. And by doing that, I begin by just looking at the community that I'm teaching in, and I look at what resources I can pull from that. So no matter where I'm at, I just use, whatever's there. So, and math is tricky because I think we get stuck to a curriculum, and I'm not really known to be stuck to a curriculum. So that flexibility, I think when we lose flexibility, then we start losing the students too. The students need that flexibility. They have flexibility of thinking, flexibility of learning, and then you can start seeing math in everything. But if all you're looking at is the curriculum in front of you, then you get very tunnel visioned and you don't see, math and everything. It's sort of like we do an engineering walk, and everything is influenced by engineering, and engineering is math. So we just need to kind of have a broader vision of education.
Yeah, I like how you were speaking about trying to move away from that rigidity. Hopefully I said that right. Claire, correct me. I need thank you. So I think I love that you spoke about that, because we can get so stuck in there's this many standards I have to teach, or this many lessons within a unit that I have to get through. And what you're talking about seems to be more like, just take a moment and see how we can connect this to the kids. We can still do the learning. We can still teach all the things we're supposed to be teaching, but let's think creatively about how we can do that in a way that's meaningful for the kids, either the place that they're in, the culture we're talking about, or any of those aspects.
Exactly.
It's really special. With IEFA, that's always been an easy in. You know, I think a lot of teachers, especially those who are uncomfortable with IEFA, can get kind of stuck in like, I have to be the expert in the room. And this mindset that like, I have to know everything because the kids are going to have questions I need to be able to ask. And I think letting go of that a little bit and just accepting that you can be a fellow learner about something the kids are interested in is a good entry point for any content area.
Definitely. My students know that I don't know. I'm very upfront. I don't know everything. But I'm like, I don't know. Let's find out together. And, I'm always like, there's this amazing thing called Google. Let's dive into it and let's find out. Because what I find with my students is just because they're Indigenous and, they live on the reservation and they've been raised there does not mean that they intrinsically have all of this knowledge. They're learning about their culture as well. Not all of the families are really deep into the culture. And so they don't know all the stories. They may not know the creation story, or maybe they've heard it a little bit different than another person has heard it. Doesn't mean it's wrong, it just means it was interpreted differently. So everyone is learning at the same time. Not everyone's on the same playing field. So Indian Ed is the same as any other curriculum area, that everybody has a different entry point. No one is an expert. And the only thing that I really try to emphasize, and I was told this or given this advice, I guess, when I first started working out at Crow, was to try to avoid the we or me and you as a separating of pronouns. Like, this is what I my background and this is your background, and just kind of try to phrase your sentences without using those pronouns of separation, and more of like, how can we come at this together? And just kind of, so they don't see themselves as separate. In my situation, I have all Indigenous students. They're not all Crow. We have a variety of, we have quite a few Cheyenne that also are at our school. But if you are in, say, Billings, which is our neighboring community, they're going to have Anglo students, Hispanic students from all over the place. And we don't want to, like, I guess, I don't know if they still use the word other, make them feel like they're other, or be like, okay, now we're going to just talk about this group right here. You're a community in the classroom. And so everybody needs to be involved in the conversation. And, what does everybody have to offer? Not using those separating pronouns. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. It's breaking down that barrier of us and them, right? It's that separatist view. And I think what you're really talking about even transcends IEFA. We're talking about building community in the classroom, right? For all students.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you're teaching teachers about IEFA, Connie, what are some common barriers or misconceptions that you see them face while trying to implement IEFA? And do you see anything that helps them move past those barriers?
I think that the misconception that they need to be an expert is there. They don't feel comfortable talking about it, or that they're afraid to talk about it because they don't have enough knowledge. They don't want to offend. It's a fine line because the culture was taken away from them. Their language was taken away. They weren't allowed to do their ceremonies. And so now that we're saying we're going to value it and we're going to teach it, there's a trust that we need to build, that we're gonna allow, that we're saying we value this, we want to teach it, we want to provide it for your kids and for other students. But there's still I think there's still a mistrust there, because at one point it wasn't allowed, and now we're saying we want to, give it back. So it is tricky. As educators, we don't want to, break that trust again. It's a fine line. And so what we tend to do, because in our essential understandings, there is, different levels of implementation. So what I think is happening is that because one person wants to just present the lessons in their classroom because of that fear, that we tend to do these very large celebrations. Like we'll have a giant powwow, or we'll have, everyone will make, I don't know, a ribbon skirt, or everybody will do, some big activity. And we make them these giant, one and done activities. So no one's really taking responsibility and stepping on anyone's feelings or toes. Whereas what we really need to do is get past that. And I think that having the large events are wonderful, but we're missing a great opportunity, the transformational level of teaching. Really getting down to what it is that we want the kids to understand, not just our Native students, but all of our students. We want them to understand about the treaties and the impact that it has, and today, and to understand that our Indigenous students, they're not history. They're our Indigenous students today in our classroom, and these treaties still affect them. And everything that happens, they're their own little country within a country. So they have a lot of things going on. And when we don't take the time to teach that, they're present day people, and we just teach them like they're a historical figure, then we're really missing out on a wonderful opportunity of learning.
Yeah. And I'm just going to put in a note for the listeners, but the document that Connie's talking about is the IEFA framework, and it has those essential understandings and the multicultural approaches that she referenced, including that transformative approach. So we'll link that in the description for anyone who's interested in reading that. It is a very powerful document.
We did talk about this already a little bit, but for educators that are nervous, because we did talk about how important it is to make it transformative, but that is scary for somebody who hasn't put it in, and they're afraid of doing harm. What advice or first steps would you offer for them to have them engaged?
Well, I was very lucky because when I was hired, my principal was Jason Cummins, and I just listened to him. And so I learned so much from just conversations with him. So, just finding, I don't go out and just make a friend with a Native American so that you can just listen to them, but
and steal all their knowledge. That's not the way to
go. Find a nice person you want to be a friend with. And then, you just listen to them, just ask questions and listen to them. And, just find out what's going on. And then the internet is amazing because Shane Doyle has so many videos that if I feel like I'm not really, up on a topic, like currently the Crazy Mountains is a topic that we are discussing in class, and I'm not really clear on exactly what's going on with that. There's a lot of information you can get off the internet. Shane Doyle has a video where he explains some of it. If I don't understand about Buffalo Jump, he has a video about that. There's a lot of resources. The OPI website has a ton of resources. You need to say, okay, I'm going to take Saturday and I'm going to, dig through it. But tons and tons of resources that you can get. And like I said, if there's something I'm not sure that I feel comfortable talking about, then Shane's a great person to put on a YouTube video and he'll explain it for you because he knows. And then, like I said, the American Indian Museum, the Smithsonian, has a website called Native 360, and it's not specific to Montana, but it does have a ton of information on it and videos and lesson plans. It has a wonderful Thanksgiving lesson plan that I've used in the past, and it has a really good section too on modern Indigenous people. So artists in music and all different contemporary artists that you can pull from as well. So you can present it to them, but you don't necessarily have to talk about it. And they've all been vetted, so they're not just giving information that may not be true. It's not something that we're going to find a curriculum like you could just buy. So as an educator, you're going to have to search out what you're something that's going to complement the curriculum that you're doing. There's no way around it. You're going to have to do that.
That's such a great point. I mean, I think we don't give ourselves enough credit as teachers that we did go to university for 4 years or more, some of us, to become experts in something, right? Whatever grade level you teach, whatever content area you might focus in, but you went to a university for a period of time. And if you're going to try to do IEFA in your classroom, you have to apply some level of similar learning, because if you're not Indigenous yourself, you won't have a personal experience to draw upon. You need to learn about it. You need to do the research. And I like that you're saying, like, just spend some time and look through what's out there already. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's lots of good resources. And I think one thing I would add for listeners is that just start small, like just try one thing. I think back to that scale of the levels of implementation, and some people want to jump straight to social justice, and your kids are not going to be ready for that, right? That even transformation, if you've never mentioned an Indigenous person in your classroom before, your kids are maybe not ready for transformative lesson plans, right? You might have to start with additive or contributions before you can push them there. So I think we should give ourselves the same grace in the classroom of, let's just make a goal, if I've never done it before, to do one lesson plan per semester, or whatever feels good and authentic to the teacher, and improve on that every year, because it does take time to get comfortable and effective at integrating with whatever content area you're seeking to do.
Definitely. And even at my school, so we're trying to get the student council to kind of be the leaders of putting Indian Ed for All into our school, not at the classroom level, but kind of so everybody has a little bit of a basis. And we're not going straight for social justice. We're just trying to get something going. And that's what we are trying to do, is just one activity a quarter, one activity a month, just to kind of get us started. And then you can grow from there. Like you said, you don't have to jump in. I chose to start with science because I found that the easiest with the, traditional knowledge and plants. And then for the Crow, they consider themselves the guardians of the living water and had a program that was called that. And so I just kind of dovetailed to that. So I used things that were already in existence and just then incorporated it. And the more I learned, the more I was able to kind of make it my own. So I wasn't reinventing the wheel. I was, definitely taking things that other people had used. And then just as I learned more, I was able to add more to it and make it grow. But yeah, you don't have to start with giant chunks, because you're going to be unsuccessful, and then you're going to feel bad, and then you're going to quit. You don't want to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to ask you, we didn't really have this as an official question, so you can certainly abstain from this, but I was thinking some teachers might be interested in hearing if you've ever run into, like, you tried with best intentions and something just didn't work out, or you learned that you used like an inaccurate resource or something, and if that ever happened to you, how you kind of navigated that.
I try to vet my resources really, really carefully. I have not found that I had a resource that was not
appropriate.
I try really hard. One thing I will say is that AI is not the place to go for Indigenous information. It does not have accurate information. Whatever AI pulls from, it does not have enough information to give you the right information. So do not type give me, you know, a star story.
Yes.
It's not going to give you, it will give you one, but it's not going to give you one that's true. So I would definitely say AI is not going to save you on this one. You know, I put the work in, and I don't know, I go and make sure I am visible in the community. The kids see me, and I know their families, and I know generations now since I've been there for a while. And you know, you have to make those connections before, and I just to, you know, toss that out there a little, you know, social emotional push, that you need to make the connections with your students before you start trying to connect with them culturally. You need to connect with them just as a human. So like right now, this is our 5th day of school. We're just trying to connect as people in class. I'm not going to throw out a lesson on, you know, from Indian Ed for All until we have connected just as people. That is the most important thing, just to have open communication, trustworthiness. They know I respect him as a small person, and then we can start talking about, you know, educational things.
That's such an important statement. I think we were all stunned for a minute because we were like, just
No, it's like I need to
I think you said all that in such a powerful and articulate way. I think that is the root of it. Well, thank you, Connie, so much for sharing with us. I think you shared some great insights that the listeners can really learn a lot from, and hopefully take something back and be a little bit inspired to try to connect or to try to do an IEFA lesson plan. And thanks for joining us for this episode of the Last Best Learning Podcast. We hope today's conversation gave you some practical ideas, a fresh perspective, and the encouragement to take your next step with IEFA wherever you're starting from. If you liked what you heard, share it with a colleague, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep inspiring. Until next time. We wanted to take a brief moment to also share with you another great podcast coming out of OPI. If this is something you've really enjoyed, we hope that you will follow along with the Tribal Student Achievement and Relations monthly podcast. In this podcast, they're focusing on Indian student achievement and creating conditions of success for those students. And we'll include the link down below in the description of this video so you can follow along.